Welcome back to my channel AWS DevOps Niche Level. So in this video, I'm going to talk about how to set up a Windows client in Ansible in AWS. Assuming that our Ansible controller host is a Linux machine, how do we manage a Windows system from the Linux-based Ansible controller? So that's what we are going to do as part of this video. So now let's see the steps. How do we go about it? First is we will set up the Ansible controller. Right. So our first task, we will be focusing on setting up the Ansible controller. And as part of that, I'm going to launch a Linux EC2 instance. I will be installing Ansible on the instance. Then I will also install the PyWinRM module, which is basically the protocol that will be used for communication between the Ansible controller host and the Windows machine. And we will have to update the inventory file on the Ansible controller, which is the etc Ansible host file. So these are all the steps that we need to do on the Ansible controller side. Now on the Windows client, first I will be launching a EC2 instance with the Windows AMI. Then I will be opening the WinRM port in the security group. So in order to have the controller communicate with the Windows client, we have to open the port 5986, which is the port for the Windows Remote Management Protocol, right? So once we open the port in the security group, then we need to install the WinRM component on Windows, which we'll be doing it via the PowerShell script. For the user authentication between the Ansible controller and the Windows client, we need to create one user on the Windows machine so that the authentication is enabled between the Ansible controller and the Windows machine. So once all these steps are done, we are going to verify the communication between the Ansible controller and the Windows client, and we will try to execute some commands, Windows commands from the Ansible controller. We will see if it works, and we will also try to execute a playbook to install some software packages on the Windows client. Okay, so these are all the sequence of steps that we will do. So just to quickly explain you that the communication, how it is going to happen between the Ansible controller host and the Windows client. So let's say this is our Ansible controller host and this is the Windows machine. This I will name it as Ansible controller, and this will be a Linux system. So this will be a Linux machine, and this will be a Windows instance, which will be managed by the Ansible controller. Okay, so what happens is basically the communication between the Ansible controller and the Windows system happens via the WinRM protocol, Windows Remote Management Protocol, and the port number is 5986. So this is the port number for the WinRM HTTPS. Ideally, it is a HTTPS version of WinRM which we are going to install, and that is going to be running on the port 5986. So that is the reason we need to open this particular port 5986 for the Windows machine so that it can accept the WinRM HTTPS connections coming from the Ansible controller. Okay. And we are installing this WinRM module both on the Ansible controller as well as on the Windows client, typically for the communication. Okay, so now let's move ahead into the lab. Right, so what I will do is I will log into my AWS console. And as a first step, we will try to launch a Linux EC2 instance, and we will set up the Ansible controller on that instance. So now what is our first step? Let me go back to my instructions here. So setting up the Ansible controller, first is launch the Linux EC2 instance. So let me click the EC2 dashboard and let me launch an instance here. Okay, I click launch instances. I will say Ansible controller Linux, the Linux based machine, and we will select the Linux AMI. I will just go with Amazon Linux 2 AMI. And with respect to the instance type, I think we should be good with t2.micro, no problems. So key pair, probably I will select the existing key pair. Okay, so on the security group, I'll just allow the SSH traffic only from my IP address. And let me go ahead and launch the instance. Okay, so launching the Linux EC2 instance is done. Now the next step is we need to install Ansible on this Linux machine. So let me log into the instance. Okay, now it is in the running state. Let me grab the IP address. Okay, I will upload the keys. Okay, so now this is my Ansible controller node, which is running on the Linux platform. So I will even update the host name also. Host name Ansible hyphen, or I will just say Ansible underscore controller. Okay, maybe it is not taking the underscore. I'll just say hyphen. Okay. So let me exit the session and then log in back so that this new host name is enabled. So you can see here, this is the Ansible controller node. Now, let us go ahead and install Ansible on this. So this is a command to install Ansible. So Amazon hyphen extras install Ansible 2. That is a package name which is available in this repository, Amazon Linux extras. Enter. Let me say yes here. Okay, so now Ansible has been installed. Let us check the version of Ansible. Ansible minus minus version. Okay, you can see here it is saying the latest version is 2.9.23. It is also giving the config file. Where is the path and the Python module location, the Python version, etc. So now we have launched a Linux instance. We have also installed Ansible. Now the third step is we need to install the PyWinRM module, which is the Python Windows Remote Management module. We need to install it on the Ansible controller host. So how do we install it? So this is a command. First I need to install a package called pip. So I will say yum install pip. Okay, so now pip has been installed. The next step is we need to basically ensure that the pip is upgraded to the version at least 9.0.3 which will only help to install the PyWinRM module, right? So we need minimum 9.0.3 version. So let me give this command to upgrade the pip to 9.0.3. So it has been installed. Okay, now let me give the command pip install PyWinRM. So this is the Windows Remote Management Protocol component which will be running on your controller host. Because using this only the communication is going to happen between the Ansible controller and the Windows node. Okay, so this PyWinRM has been installed successfully. So now what we will do is we will actually add some parameters in the etc Ansible host file. That is the inventory file for Ansible. So if I go to cd etc Ansible, so there is a host file here. So let me edit this file and I'm going to add few parameters. First, I'm adding a section for Windows, and under this we are going to mention the IP address of the Windows instance once we launch the instance, right? So for now I'm just leaving it like this. Then we are going to add few more parameters here. So what is the Ansible user? Basically, we are hard coding the username and the password here, right? So what is the Ansible user? What is the Ansible password? This is just a rough password. I'm using it. Maybe I can just say test at 123. Test at 123. Okay. An Ansible connection, it is the Windows remote management, right? And what is the port? It is 5986. And if there are any certification validation errors that we receive, we are asking it to ignore. Okay, so these are the configurations we need to typically put it in the host file. The main thing to remember is that the authentication between the controller and the Windows host is going to happen via this user ANS admin. Okay. So now once our Windows instance is ready, let's grab the IP address of that and we will update it here little later. So for now, let me save this file. Now we are done with the configurations, whatever we need to do on the Ansible controller side. Now we will go ahead and launch a Windows machine, which will be the client. So let me say launch instances. And I will name it as Ansible underscore Windows underscore client. So let me pick a Windows AMI here. Maybe I will take this Windows Server 2016 base. HT2.micro is fine. Key pair. Let me select the latest key pair, this one. And security group, basically allowing the RDP traffic from again Ansible controller host, right? So it has to allow the RDP traffic, or ideally it should allow the port connection 5986 only from the Ansible controller. So for RDP, I will say only my IP address, right? Only from my IP, I need to log into this Windows machine and I need to install the Windows remote management component. So there is another security group rule we need to create, which we will do it a little later. So for now, let me go ahead and launch the instance. Okay, so the instance is getting launched. Meanwhile, what I will do is I will go into the security group. Let me edit it and I will add a rule, inbound rule for port 5986, which is the Windows Remote Management Protocol. So here I will say edit inbound rules and I will add a rule here. I'm going to search for WinRM. See here, you have WinRM HTTP and WinRM HTTPS. We are going to use the HTTPS version of the WinRM protocol. Right. So let me select WinRM HTTPS, and that's why see here you can see the port 5986. The same thing that I explained here, that the communication happens via the port 5986 on the Windows client. That's the reason we are opening this port in the security group of the Windows machine. And here I will say maybe anywhere. Ideally, it should be the Ansible machine. Just for our lab purpose, I'm just saying anywhere. And click Save Rules. Fine. So now this security group is also updated. You see on the Windows side, what are all the steps we have completed? So we have launched the Windows instance, and we have also opened the port 5986 in the security group. Now we will have to install this Windows RM component or the package on the Windows machine. So how do we do that? First, we need to log into the Windows instance. Back to EC2. Okay, here is our Windows client. So I will click connect here. And I click RDP client. Let me download this remote desktop file. And then we need to grab the password for the administrator, right? So I will just say get password. So it generally takes 4 minutes for the admin password to be available. We will have to try it a little later. Okay, now it is asking me to upload the private key file. Let me upload this PEM file. And now I can say decrypt password. You can see that it has given the password for the administrator, right? Now I can directly log into my instance. So this is my RDP. Let me say connect. And I will copy the password. We click yes here. Okay, so now I'm logging into the Windows machine. Okay. So now what is our first step on the Windows machine? Install the WinRM on Windows. So how do you install the package on Windows? So let me go through my instructions here. So there is a PowerShell script called configure remoting for Ansible. Okay. So this is something you can download it on the internet also. I can share you the link in the description section from where you can download this PowerShell script, right? It is actually configure remoting for Ansible. So I need to basically copy this script from my system into this particular Windows machine. So let me go ahead and grab that script. Just give me a moment. Put that in the Windows machine. So this is our Windows machine. I'll go to the C drive. Probably I'll be putting it in the C drive itself. So I'm going to put it under the root folder. Okay, you can see this is the PowerShell script. So now what we will do, we will open the command prompt as the administrator, and we will try to execute the script. Or is it command prompt or PowerShell? Let me just double check here. Okay, yeah, in the command prompt. So command prompt. run as administrator. Okay. So here, let me give this command. PowerShell.exe execution policy is bypass minus file is in the current directory and the file name is this. So basically it is going to install this package. We'll copy that, enter. So what I'm doing is I'm installing this Windows remote management package on this client. And on the controller, we had installed the Python Windows remote management module, right? That is on the controller side, and this is for your client side. Okay, you can see here, it is giving some HTTP links. So you got the message, okay, right? Which means it has installed the component successfully. Okay, so now our next step is we need to create a user named ANS admin, and then we need to set the password as well, right? Based on our configuration file, what we had. So I remember we changed it to some test at 123, right? So that's the password we need to set it here as well. Okay, so now let me go into the user management module. I think it's slowly coming up. Okay, yeah, here it is. So now what we will do here is we'll create a user called ANS admin. I click this users here. Here I do a right click. I will say new user. And I will say ANS admin. And password, I will use the same password what I had put in that configuration file. Okay, let me remove this option. User must change the password, and I'll just go ahead and create it. Okay, so let me go back to my controller node and I'll just try to double verify the password. Okay, I use the same password. Fine, so we are good now on the Windows system. And the other important thing what we need to do here is we have to make this user member of administrators. Otherwise, you will not be able to execute commands remotely from your Ansible controller. So please make sure that this step is not missed. So this ANS admin user should be a member of administrators. So right click properties, and then we will add it to the member of administrators. Okay, so I click member of here. I will add, I'll just say administrators, check names. That's it. Click OK. Apply. OK. So that is it. So these are all the configurations that you need to do on the Windows machine, right? We created a user named ANS admin and the user management section. We updated the password and we also added the member of the administrators group. So now we'll have to come back to the controller and we need to update this section, right? Because we have not yet updated the IP address of the Windows machine in the host file. So now let us grab the IP of the Windows machine. So Ansible Windows client. And here I would suggest to take only the private IP address, not the public IP. That is generally a recommendation, best practice. Why? Because if at all the instance stops and restarts, the public IP will change, right? So it's better that you use a private IP. And since both the instances are in the same region, Oregon, there should not be any communication issue. Okay, so you can very much copy the private IP address of the Windows client, and then you can put it here in the IP section. Now we are done with the configuration, both on the Ansible controller, the Linux machine, and also on the Windows client. Now we will verify if the communication works properly between the controller and the client. So this is a command I'm going to use, Ansible all. All means for all the entries, whatever is in the host file, right? So in this case, we have only the IP address of only one client, right? It is going to check for that client. So Ansible all -m, that is a module name. So what is a module name? We are going to use win_ping. So if I execute this command, it is going to verify the connectivity with the Windows client, and it is going to check whether it is getting a response. So let us check this. Okay, so you can see here it is giving some error. Connect to the host via SSH. Could not resolve the host name. Okay, so the error what we received has been fixed now. I will tell you what changes I have made. So if I go into the host file, so these are all the entries we had given, right? So you can see there is a section called Windows in which we have entered the IP address of our Windows client. And basically this section was not there. I just added it. Windows:vars, right? So this is a section where we are declaring the variable as well as the value. So Windows:vars, this particular entry was missing, right? We had the other entries under this, but we have to add this Windows:vars, and under that you define the variables and the values. So that is the reason it was not working before. So now I added this. Now we are good. So now let us verify the connectivity between the Ansible controller node and the Windows node. This is the command Ansible all -m, and I will say win_ping. I'm using the module win_ping to check the connectivity between the Ansible controller and the Windows machine. Let's see what is the output. You can see here we got the output as success, right? And it is ping pong. We gave a request and we got a response from the Windows client. So now the Ansible controller would be able to do any operations remotely on the Windows system. So we can try a few other examples. So let us try to execute this command whoami.exe on the Windows machine. So this will be the command format. Ansible all, that is all the entries in the host file, right? The IP address of the client machines, whatever we have mentioned in the host file, -m. M is nothing but the module. So we are using a win_command module, and -a is the argument. What is the argument for this command? So that is nothing but the actual command what we want to execute. It is whoami.exe, enter. So this command is going to be executing on the Windows node, and you can see the output here. So now all the commands, whatever we need to perform on the Windows client, we are executing on the Ansible controller itself. So similarly, let's try to create a folder on the Windows machine using this command. So Ansible all -m, the module is win_command, and the argument for that module is cmd.exe. That is, we are invoking the command prompt, and then we are actually creating a directory with the command mkdir. The directory name is test, right, under the C drive. Let's try to execute this. Okay, you can see that it is saying changed, which means it has created that directory. Let us try to log into the Windows machine and we'll check that. Try to get the password. Okay, so team, we have logged into the Windows machine. Now let us verify if that folder has been created. Okay, C drive. You can see here, we have the test folder, which is already created, right? So this is a command that we executed from the Ansible controller. Now let me go back and let us give another command. Now this time I will say test file, right? Let's see if it is going to create a directory called test file on the Windows node. It is saying changed. Let's go back to the Windows node. Yeah, you can see here, we have the test file directory created here, right? So these two are the two folders what we created from the Ansible controller host. Okay. So now let's also try to execute a playbook and try to install a couple of software on this Windows machine. So now if I go into the add remove programs, so let's see what software we have. Apps. Okay, so you can see that there are no much software installed, right? We can see only the SSM agent, TV drivers, etc. So now what we will do is we will install a couple of software. One is Git and one will be the Notepad Plus, which we are going to install it from our controller host. So from this machine, we can write a playbook and then we can deploy the software onto the Windows nodes. So let me create a playbook called pi deploy underscore package packages.yml. That is my playbook name. Okay, and let me just add the entries for this playbook to install this packages. So this is how my playbook will look like. So name is Win Chocolatey module demo. So basically I'm using a module, Ansible built-in module called Win Chocolatey in order to install these packages. The host will be all the entries, whatever we have mentioned in the host file. In our case, it's only one Windows client. And I'm making the become is equal to false. That is, I do not want to execute as a root. I want to execute as a ANS admin user. And I'm disabling the gather facts. And under the variable section, I'm defining packages and also mentioning the name of the packages. So I want to install Git and I want to install Notepad Plus, right? So I'm mentioning the name of the package. And under the tasks, again, I'm mentioning the task name as install packages. And the module I'm using is Win Chocolatey. And in the name, again, I'm calling the packages variable where I have defined these two packages and state is present. So this will be our simple playbook in order to deploy these two software, that is Git and Notepad Plus, onto the Windows system, right? So now how do I execute it? I will say Ansible playbook, just the playbook name, deploy packages.yml. You can see here, it is the process of executing the playbook. Currently, it is doing the install packages step. shouldn't take much time. Let's see. Okay, so team, now you can see that this playbook was successfully deployed, right? So you can see that the change is equal to 1, right? Basically, the change is nothing but it has deployed a couple of packages onto the Windows box. So we will verify on the Windows box if Git and Notepad Plus are installed. So if I go to the add remove programs, you can see here Git is installed here, and we also have the Notepad Plus Plus installed. Okay, so this is how you deploy the packages onto the Windows client from your Linux Ansible controller. Okay, so this was our playbook where we use the module, the chocolatey module, in order to deploy the packages. Okay, so I hope this was clear to everyone, team, in terms of how do you set up your Ansible controller, how do you set up your Windows client, how to configure the communication between them using the WinRM protocol. I hope all those steps are clear. So yeah, if you like this content, please do press the like button, and also please subscribe to my channel. And if you want to share this content to your known circles who would be getting value from this video, please feel free to share the video as well. So thank you all for your support, and I will meet you all in my next video. Thank you so much.